Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney is promising generational investments, but is warning there will be sacrifices ahead. He made a primetime pre-budget address to Canadians last night.
This is what the upcoming budget will be about: building, taking control, and winning.
So what can Canadians expect from this budget, and what kinds of cuts could be on the way? Let's bring in CTV political analyst Tom Mulcair with more on this. Good morning to you, Tom.
Good morning, Will.
So initially, what was your reaction to what the Prime Minister had to say last night towards the nation?
Well, I'll say two things. The first is in terms of the form. It was a Mark Carney who was very much in shape. He was comfortable. He was with a university audience. His people. He was talking freely. He was talking energetically, and he had a big smile on his face. And it had been a criticism recently, not talking enough French. There was tons of French in there. It was actually very good. So the message itself now on the substance is they're splitting the budget. They've given that hint in the past. Investments, this big idea of Bill C-5, massive national projects, they're going to be on a different set of books, and the operations of the government will be on the normal books. He's promising to balance those books within 3 years. Now, that's a big honking promise that is going to require a lot of cutting in the federal government. But as we've seen with the disasters from the recent report from the Auditor General with Canada Revenue Agency, look, there's a lot that can be improved and a lot can be reduced. So is he going to be able to pull that off without affecting services to the public? The answer appears to be yes, at least in their intentions. And I don't think he's going to lose the NDP votes because he's going to keep the dental plan. He's going to keep, of course, childcare, and he seems to be wanting to enhance other social programs like the school food program for kids the most in need. So with that sort of progressive measure, he's keeping to his Liberal base, and he's also managing, I believe, to hold on to the NDP vote, which is required, of course, because the Bloc and the Conservatives will be voting against the budget.
Yeah, lots of promises. You mentioned one of them. He promises to balance the budget within the next 3 years. But he also had a promise of generational investments. So what do you think Carney will be prioritizing in this budget?
Well, we've had hints in his first set. The first suite included things like major mineral extraction projects. We're talking about the high-speed train in the Toronto-Quebec City corridor, that sort of thing. We're looking at some investments in terms of natural resources that are necessary to find new markets. That's the type of thing, a project that can be worth maybe 50, 60 or more $billion. This is the type of thing that is often hard to get off the drawing board. Now, First Nations, Inuit and Métis people have expressed concern that it might affect their rights, but the answer has been no, your rights will be completely respected, but we're also going to give you a chance, as has happened other times in the past in Canada. Think the James Bay hydroelectric project, where the James Bay Cree and the Inuit got an equity stake. They've been able to make massive investments in their communities because of what they're getting as a revenue sharing, and that's what's being pitched back. You're going to have opportunities that have never existed before. So overall, this is the type of thing that we can expect Canada getting to some of these big projects that we just never seem to be able to get off the drawing board otherwise.
Yeah, Tom, and he talks about promises, and that's what we've talked about so far. But to have one, you need something else. And he used a word I think a lot of Canadians will be a little bit scared about. That word was sacrifices. So are you concerned about the potential government cuts that might be on the way with all these promises?
Well, that's on top of the word austerity, which has always been kryptonite for politicians. They don't like using that word because it evokes hard times for the average Canadian voter. And when you see that in the provincial budgets, it's the same thing. But I believe that voters are ready for some reality therapy with regard to the budgetary situation in Canada. Look, under Trudeau's Liberals, we started 10 years ago with we had $600 billion in debt for Canada. It went to $1.2 billion. He doubled the debt that Canada had accumulated in its first 150 years. He doubled it in 10 years. And it's been the same thing if you take the total federal, provincial, municipal debts, $2 trillion when the Liberals started 10 years ago, $4 trillion today. That means that there's $100,000 of debt for every man, woman, and child in Canada. People understand that that's not sustainable. And they also look at the performance of the federal government, the size, the 40% increase in the 10 years that the Liberals were there, and say, what are we getting for that money? So I think that people are more than ready to see somebody who's actually going to deliver public services at a reasonable cost, not cut those, but go after the bureaucracy itself. So those sacrifices, I think, might be seen as very unjust by the public service unions, especially in the national capital area, and that's understandable. I think that he's going to be wise enough to know that there's a whole cohort of the tail end of the baby boom that's coming to retirement soon. They might be encouraged to do that. I don't think that they're going to have to cut in any serious way with regard to the more new hires, which often represent more equity in the hiring, and you don't want to affect that because it's become more fair way of hiring in Canada.
Yeah, well, we don't have to wait too long to get those numbers. The budget is tabled on November 4th, so we'll
Exactly.
be looking ahead for that. Tom, really appreciate your time this morning, giving us some
Good
guidance.
to be with you, Will. All the best. Have a great day.